Well, good morning and welcome into week 2 of a series called Life Hacks. And if you were with us last week, we established that a life hack is any trick, shortcut, skill, or method that will increase both productivity and efficiency in any area of your life. And so we're going to boil that down right now to one sentence, one statement, one fact, an unexpected solution to a common problem. And men, I want to give you a life hack right now. This one's for you. Men, listen in. You ever ask your wife, you want to go on a date, you want to go to dinner, and you say, where do you want to go? And she says, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference. You pick, and you do. And you're wrong. Here's the hack. Men, listen, this is for us. You say this, you want to go to dinner? And they'll say, yes. And then you just say this. You say, babe, you're going to love it. I picked the best place. You're going to be absolutely floored. I'm so excited to take you there. The intrigue is going to get them. And they're going to say this, well, where are we going? And you say, I'm not going to tell you. It's a surprise unless you want to guess. And then they're going to guess. And that's where you go. It works. I promise you. Even if that's not where you thought you were going, you go where they guess. That is your unexpected solution to the common problem. Men, you are welcome. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about and we're going to unpack a solution to a common problem that many of us have, and it's the problem of having the right relationships. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and declare this the everything bagel. Now, this everything bagel is in a Ziploc bag because if you're familiar with the everything bagel, I don't want to get it dirty. We don't want to mess it up for you. You're welcome. It's got all sorts of stuff on the top. Anybody love everything bagels? Yeah, they're the everything bagel. They're perfect. You just want plain with butter? Check. You want maybe a little bit of cream cheese? Check. You want to put a little flavored cream cheese? Check. You want to make a little personal pizza? Little sauce on there, a little mozzarella, a little cheese, a little pepperoni. Put that in the toaster oven. Check. Like it's the hack for the best bagel. It doesn't get any better than that, right? This hack that I'm about to tell you is the everything bagel hack. Are you ready for it? It's very simple. Being in the right relationships is the everything hack. Everything in your life flows downstream from the right relationships. And I'm going to make a statement as we unpack this that's going to, on the surface, sound harsh. There will be times in your life, just like there have been times in my life, in order to become who God wants you to become and go to the next level in your relationship with Him, hear me. You're going to have to leave some people behind. They're holding you back. Being in the right relationships is the everything hack. If you want to be in the right relationships, I'm telling you, it will change your life. And if you want to get to the right destination, you need to have the vehicle of the right relationships to get there. We're all headed somewhere. There's an eternity on this. When your life ends, on the other side, there's an eternity. There's heaven or hell. We're going to say heaven is the right destination. I hope all of us go there. You have to have the right relationships. That's the vehicle to get to the right destination. And we're going to unpack that this week. Last week, we said this. It's okay not to be okay. We established that. It's okay. As you start off a brand new year, it's all right if you're struggling. It's all right if you're hurting. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But you can't stay there. You can't stay stuck. You've got to keep moving, keep going, keep pressing. And the right relationships help you get there. Being in or having the right relationships. I heard it's an old adage, it's a leadership adage. I heard it years ago, and I don't know who gets credit for it. I've heard Craig Groeschel say it. I've heard Andy Stanley say it. I've heard my parents say it, right? Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. If you're a parent, you get this to be really true. When your kids were younger in elementary or maybe middle school or high school, and they were hanging out with maybe the wrong crowd, you knew where they were headed. You show me your friends, I'll show you your future. 8th grade Dan. There was a group of 5 of us that hung out all the time. We were inseparable. I'm going to let you into my life. I'm going to give you a sneak peek. This is the school I went to. This is called Walter Zatto. This was the front door. You could go in the side door too. But there was a group of us that would hang out at this school all through middle school, and then the high school was actually right beside it. You can kind of see, this is actually the high school building as well. So it's all in one area, one complex. Across the street from the school was a little store called Kimmy's. This is back when this is the olden days when you could leave school property during lunch hour, and usually I would walk home for lunch. And I'd watch Leave It to Beaver and I Love Lucy. That dates me, right? That's to tell you how old I really am. And I would walk home and then I would come back. But sometimes we would go across to Kimmy's. Now here's the thing about Kimmy's. Kimmy's store had lunch, it had pinball, it had arcade, it had little bag candy. Anybody remember when you could get 5-cent candies? Yeah. Well, you're really old if you can remember penny candy. Penny candy, she says. Inflation has driven up the price of $1 now. But we could get, the blue whales and the peach rings. And Kimmy was generous. And so you could go in there with we had loonies, not dollar bills. We had little coins that were worth $1. They were called loonies. And we would go in and we would put our loonie on the counter and she would give us a bag of mixed assorted candy, usually 25 to 30 pieces. Now, what we did at lunch hour, because this was back when it was okay to do this, we would go out and behind the school and we would play in the playground. And one day, nearing the end of 8th grade, one of the guys in our group, his name was Jamie, wanted candy. Didn't have any candy, didn't have any money, but one of the 6th graders had just come back from Kimmy's. You can kind of see where this is going. And he went up to the kid who had a couple bags of candy, and he said, "Give me your candy." The kid was like, "I'm not giving you my candy. I bought it. I want it. It's mine. Give it to." And Jamie beat the kid up, punched him in the face, worked him like a rented mule, took his candy, and left. And about 50 minutes later, Jamie got called into the principal's office. And then one by one, me, Lamando, Spratt, and G-Waz, that was our group. G-Waz, his name was Kenny, but we called him G-Waz. The 4 of us get called into the principal's office. And one by one, we all got suspended. But we weren't even there. I was at home watching I Love Lucy and Leave It to Beaver. I was guilty by association. Here's the real kicker. It was nearing the end of our 8th grade year, which was our 8th grade graduation trip to Toronto, to the CN Tower, to look at the Sky Dome where the Blue Jays played, and we were going to go see Phantom of the Opera. That was our grade 8 graduation trip, and our 3-day suspension fell on those 3 days, and we missed it. Guess who Mack, Lamando, Spratt, and G-Waz never hung out with again? Jamie. We kicked him to the curb so fast. Because if you show me your friends, I'll show you your future. You become who you surround yourself with. Show me your friends. And I don't mean this harshly, and I don't mean this weirdly. If you let me into your life and I could follow you for a week with the friends you hang around with, I can tell you your destination. I'm not a psychic. I'm not a palm reader. I don't believe in those things. But I can tell you your future by the people that you associate with who are in your inner circle. And we're going to talk about that today. In fact, let's go to the greatest musical and lyrical duo ever. And if you're with us last week, you're going to get that reference, King David and his son Solomon. This is what Solomon wrote. "Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm." I think sometimes what we have to do is we have to stop and assess our lives and realize that when struggles come or hardships come or problems arise, we have to consider the possibility that it might not just be, well, that's just the hand I've been dealt. That's the way the cookie crumbles. These are the cards I've been given. This is my lot in life. This is all the talent I have. No. We have to consider that your condition is downstream of your community. That the people you associate with will influence you. Sometimes how and where you find yourself is not because of God's judgment on you. It's your own choices have led you there. Your condition is downstream of your community, the people that you surround yourself with. And if you surround yourself with the right people in that community, honestly, it becomes your everything bagel. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. So this is a biblical principle, but I want to show you how this is more of a humanistic and viable principle as well. Here it is. You will walk like who you walk with. Should you think about this? It's biblical. It's an inviolable human principle too. Let me give you some examples. If you walk with the financially irresponsible, guess what you're going to become? You're going to become financially irresponsible. If you hang out with people who gamble and blow away their money and just do stupid things with it, even if you're like, oh, I'm really responsible, eventually you're going to be like, well, I can do that too. And you become like them. Wives, if you just hang out with bitter and angry wives, you know what you're going to become? A bitter, angry wife. Eventually, you'll just give in to the gossip and the bashing of your husband. Husbands, if you walk with passive, spiritually apathetic men, you yourself will eventually become a passive, apathetic, spiritually apathetic man. It's just the inevitable. It will happen. Dads, moms, humans, this is a principle for all of us. Now watch how it flips. Watch how it works inversely. Whoever walks with the financially responsible, you know what you're going to become? You will become financially responsible over time because you're going to learn from you're going to learn from them on how they're spending and how they're saving and how they're investing and how they're managing their money. And eventually it's going to take hold within you. You walk with the financially responsible, you become financially responsible. Wives, if you walk with and hang out with encouraging, thriving wives, you become an encouraging, thriving wife. Husbands, if you hang out with loving, godly men, and that's your group, that's your core, guess what you will eventually become? A loving, godly husband. Let's go dads for a second. You hang out with loving, godly fathers, you yourself, you become who you hang out with. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It's a biblical principle. It's a human principle. You are the sum total of who you surround yourself with. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking two things. You're thinking, one, Dan, you're a jerk. This isn't me. I can hang out. I can hang out with the people who might pull me down a bit, but I can do it, Dan. I can stay with my ride or die and not be affected. Dan, you're a jerk, and I can handle it on my own. And I'm telling you, the biblical principle says no. When I was a youth pastor, this is years ago, I used this as an illustration. I'm not going to use it today because I'm old and I don't want to get hurt. But here's what I did. There was a little 6th grade girl in our youth group. Her name was Carly. She was tiny. She might have been $110 soaking wet. Like just this little tiny, cute little girl, 6th grade Carly. And I said, Carly, I need you to come here for a second. So Carly came up and she stood beside me on the platform. And I asked the youth group, there's 150 of us, I said, who do you think is stronger, me or Carly? And everybody picked Dan because everybody was smart. Like little Carly can't do much to Dan. So here's what I did. I put Carly down in front of me on below the platform. I don't want to use it because there's an altar rail there and I don't want to break an ankle and hurt myself. But I said, Carly, this is when I was younger and more pliable. I said, Carly, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to pull me down. Pull me down to your level. So we grabbed hands and I tried to lift her up a bit. And I could a little bit until she went limp. And I was leaning over and 110 pounds and I fell right off the platform. And then we switched spots. And I said, all right, Carly, clearly you're stronger than me. You pulled me down. And she stood here and I grabbed her hands and I pulled her down. It didn't take me any time. Because you know why? It is impossible to pull somebody up to your level. It's really possible, and it happens quickly for people to pull you down to theirs. Now, if I had braced myself a little bit and anchored myself and really tried to lean in and pull her up, I probably could have done it. She was 110 pounds. But how I was standing, because it's vulnerable, how I was standing was leaning over, and she just yanked me right off that platform as soon as she went limp. Because it's a lot easier to pull someone down to your level than to bring someone up. And you're like, well, Dan, no, you don't get it. I can handle it. You're misled if you think you can handle it. Don't be misled, Paul wrote. Bad company corrupts good character. You can have the purest of intentions, But if your core group of friends, the people that you surround yourself with on a daily basis, are far from Jesus, you will become far from Jesus. They will influence you away from the foundation of Christ. It is a biblical principle. Bad character will corrupt you. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians, he said this, don't be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? What fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony or unity is there between Christ and Belial, which is the enemy, the devil? What does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? What agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? Now, this is the NIV version. Don't be yoked. Now, in our culture today, yoke means strong, jacked, muscular. The NLT says it this way, don't team up with. Don't be bound to people who are unbelievers. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live in darkness and with darkness? And is there any harmony between Christ and the devil? How can a believer be a partner with an unbeliever? What union can there be between God's temple and idols? I want to unpack this, and I want to give you an illustration. Adam and Jesse, come on up. These are my go-to guys for a moment. Come on up, guys. I want you to, Adam, pick a number, or Jesse, come on. Pick a number between 1 and 10.
7.
All right. No, sorry. You get to stand there. You stand over there. You get wickedness. All right, hold that sign up. Turn it around. 1 says wickedness. If you can't see it in the back in the cheap seats. Righteousness. Wickedness, righteousness. I'm going to give you Christianity 101 right here. Every single person in this room and every single person who's come before you. Actually, step forward just a smidge and get inside that black box so you're on the camera. All right, you sit inside that black. There you go. Perfect. Camera doesn't add 10 pounds. Okay. Wickedness, righteousness. Every single person before you said yes to Jesus was here. Your parents, your grandparents, godly saints, at one point were bound to wickedness. We're all born into it. Everybody that's going to come after us is born into and bound to and tied to wickedness. Jesus came and brought righteousness. And so we strive for or we strain towards righteousness. But until we say yes to Jesus and surrender our hearts to him, we're bound to this. This is what we call Christianity 101. This is the basics. So I can strive for righteousness and I can aim for it, but if I don't allow Christ to really get into my heart, to really get into my soul, to really get into my being, I'm going to be bound back to wickedness. But Isaiah 61:10 tells us that when you say yes to Christ, when you accept the free gift of salvation, what he offered you on the cross, you have a garment of salvation and a robe of righteousness. You become bound to righteousness. Now, stay there, guys. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you this in real life. You hold this for a second. Okay? You, hang on a second. Watch this. Hold that. Well, it doesn't matter to me. You've got to hold your wicked sign up, though. Come on now. They need to see your wicked. Now, watch this. You just step over just a smidge to your left. No, get away from me. Okay. Here's how this works. Follow me. Before Jesus, wickedness is my anchor. And I can strive for righteousness, but I am bound to and stuck to wickedness. Let me flesh this out for you just for a second. You're in a relationship teamed up with an unbeliever, and you're striving for righteousness. But you know what you're going to do? You're going to be bound back to wickedness. Maybe you're evangelidating. You know what I mean? Evangelidating. I got to date that person so they get saved. I love Jesus, but they don't. But I want them to get saved, so I'm going to date them to save them. You evangeliate, and you want righteousness, but they don't have any righteousness within them. You know what you're going to be doing? Each other. You partner up in business with an unbeliever, And you want to strive for righteousness. You want to strive for holiness. You want to strive for Jesus. But you know what's going to happen? They're going to say, I need you to cook the books. I need you to lie on your taxes. We got to cut corners and cut costs. If you are bound to wickedness, even though you might be striving for righteousness, you are always going to be pulled back to it. Now watch what happens. Adversely, on the other side, you're bound to righteousness. You're dating somebody who also loves Jesus. And in a moment of weakness that you have, well, let's just have sex. Let's just cross that line. You know what they do? They pull you back to righteousness. You get anchored to righteousness. You're in business with a fellow believer. You're partnered with somebody who loves Jesus. And you're like, well, it's tight right now. It's really tempting to cook the books. You know what? I'm just going to lie on my taxes. And they say, no, we're going to honor God with our integrity. You go out late on a Saturday night, maybe a little bit too much to drink. I'm going to skip church tomorrow. I'm too tired. I'm too exhausted. And your friends say, hey, don't forget church tomorrow, 10 o'clock, be there. When you are anchored to righteousness, when you are locked into righteousness and you surround yourself with fellow believers who want righteousness, you might try to, you know what you're going to be doing? You're going to be bound back to righteousness. And I want to tell you, I want you to hear me. Some of you have been set free from that, but you are surrounding yourself with people who haven't, and you're going to be bound back to this. You are always pulled to what you are tied to. Would you thank Adam and Jesse for helping me out? Let's drop them on the floor, that's fine. You are always, I want you to hear me, you are always tied to and pulled to one or the other. And what you're tied to is what you're going to be pulled to. So if you're tied to righteousness, even though you might think or want to go and cross the line and you want to go, you're going to be bound back. You're going to be yoked back, tied to, connected to, and inversely the same way. I want to pause for a second because I know what some of us are thinking, because I think it myself a little bit too. There's a tension in my mind with this. And I've got to manage it because you know Dan's philosophy. I love lost, least, overlooked. That's my heartbeat. Lost people, the least, and the overlooked. So how do we manage the tension? Don't be unequally yoked, but be a light to the world. Well, that doesn't work. Or Bible says bad company corrupts good character, but Jesus was a friend of sinners and hung out with the bad company. How does that work? How do you manage that tension? Or you might feel the tension of Proverbs 22:24 that says, don't associate with angry people or hot-tempered people. But Matthew 28:19 was the Great Commission. Go into all the world and reach them and show them the love of Jesus. And that includes angry and hot-tempered people. How do you reconcile these two things? It feels like a contradiction. I want to help you see this. This is the everything bagel. How many of you would agree with this statement? Jesus loved everybody. Doesn't mean he agreed with them. It doesn't mean he endorsed them or supported them. But he loved everybody. For God so loved the world that whoever believes in him can have eternal life. That is 101. Jesus loved everybody. But watch how Jesus operated. Jesus fed the 5,000, commissioned the 72. He discipled the 12. He mentored the 3 and had the 1. So he's got the outer group. He's got the 5,000 people. He sees them. He hears them. He cares for them. He loves them. And then he commissions 72. It's getting smaller. And then he grabs 12 motley men. And they say, I'm going to disciple you. And then he loves Peter, James, and John. But then he says to John, and as he's dying, he says, hey, John, there's my mom. Her name is Mary. Would you take care of her? I love you so much, John. I need you to take care of my mom. He has the 5,000, the 72, the 12, the 3, and the 1. And here's how we manage this tension of being careful with who we surround ourselves with. This is the picture that I want you to get. Your life, my life, Jesus' life was like a circle with 3 rings. And on the outside circle, It's the people that you have interest in. It's the people that you might see at the ball fields and, hey, how you doing? Or you come to church and, hey, how's the wife? How's the kids? How's the husband? How's work? There's an interest or a connection. There's some sort of relationship, but it's more fringe. It's the 5,000. But then what happens is within the circle, there begins to be people who have influence on you and you have influence on them. And no matter who you are, this is probably going to be between 15 and 20 people. This is the 12. There's influence. And so if you're hanging around with people that are influencing you towards Jesus, great. If you're hanging around with people who are influencing you away from Jesus, well, you might want to assess that. But there's going to be 15 to 20 people in your life that you influence and in your life that influence you. But now, here's what happens. Every single one of us has an inner circle that we're intimate with. And I don't mean sexually, all right? That you're like, well, intimacy means sex. No. Intimacy is I'm sharing life and doing life with you. I'm breaking bread with you. I'm connecting with you. Spouses of each other, if your husband or your wife is not in this circle, you're in trouble. If you're sharing intimate details about your life, and it's not to your wife or to your husband, it's to another lady or another man of the opposite sex, you're in trouble. Your marriage is in trouble. My wife is in this circle. My prayer partner, Dave, is in this circle. Dave knows every struggle, every anger, every frustration. We talk every Monday. There are people, and there's usually about 3 or 4 that get to land here. Now, I want you to see this. I want you to understand this, and I want you to hear me. If there are people that are on the fringe that should be here, you need to get them here. If there's people up here like, man, they are godly, they love their spouse, they honor their husband, they honor their wives, they're a great parent, they serve Jesus, follow Jesus, love you, but they're only here, and you've got people who are so far from Jesus here, flip it. Doesn't mean you can't have a connection with them, a relationship with them, a friendship with them. It means they don't get to be intimate in your life, pulling you towards. You'll be pulled towards what you are bound to. The inner circle of your life is who you will become. And if you have nobody in your life that's wise, you're going to suffer harm. You need somebody in your inner circle that you're intimate with relationally. And again, I don't mean sexually. I'm not talking sex. You need intimacy. You need connection with 1 or 2 people. Jesus said the 5,000, 70, the 12, the 3, the 1. This is how you manage this tension. When I was in college, I had a group of friends. There was 6 or 7 of us. We hung out a lot. We hung out all the time. We played arguably at the time, you're going to laugh, we played this a lot. This was, at the time, the greatest video game ever. The graphics, you're like, looks awful. Well, you guys are young and hip and there's awesome graphics. This was amazing in like 1999 and 2000. You know what we did was we would stay up every Friday night, and we would go into the bottom of our dorm, the student lounge, and we would stay up literally all night playing James Bond. And then we would sleep all day Saturday, and then we would stay up all night Saturday night playing James Bond. And then we would sleep in on Sunday and skip church at Bible college studying to become pastors. And then it got so bad that we would skip class to play video games, and then we would skip lunch so we could do our homework because we skipped class so we could play video games. And all of a sudden, it was Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night, and we're playing video games for hours and hours and hours. And it was fun. We had a good time. We were enjoying ourselves. We weren't out being stupid. We weren't out getting drunk. We weren't getting high. We were sitting in the basement of the boys' lounge playing video games. That's okay, isn't it? Until it affected every other area of my life. And I did this for my freshman year and my sophomore year. Until the first semester of my junior year, I locked eyes with a beautiful young woman and I fell in love. And her name was Kim. And she's absolutely breathtaking to me. And I asked her out, and she said no. It's a true story. And then I waited a week, and I asked her out again, and she said yes. And over time, she landed here. Again, I'm not talking sex. We waited till we were married to have sex. I'm talking about intimacy. I wanted to be around Kim because she made me a better person. She was bound to righteousness. Her character has always been above reproach. And so when there was times where I was tempted to skip class to play video games, I was like, well, I want to be around Kim. And there was times where the guy's like, hey, we're going down to the dorm on Friday night. We're going to go play video games all night. No, I want to be around Kim. And there's times where I was like, I got to say something to this person because I'm going to punch him in the face if I don't. And Kim would say, watch your mouth. Watch your temper. Be very careful. And she would bring me back to righteousness because she was here in my intimacy circle. Now, I'm still friends with some of those guys. We still talk periodically. But there's a number of those guys that we were in college together that have had a call from God on their lives to be pastors that are no longer in ministry and no longer following Jesus. They just walked away from the faith because they were all bound to wickedness. No morals, no values, no compass. You will be pulled towards what you're tied to. This is a biblical and cultural world principle. It's an inviolable principle. It holds true. Whether you love Jesus or not, it holds true. And over the course of my junior year into my senior year, my grades went up. My influence on campus went up. My morals and my character went up because Kim was connected to and anchored to Jesus, and I wanted to be around her, and eventually I became anchored and connected to Jesus in a way I'd never been anchored and connected to him before because of her influence, her integrity, and the intimacy that we had as people. And some of you have been given a new life and a new heart in Jesus Christ, and you keep surrounding yourself with the people that kept you from engaging with him in the first place. And you're anchored to wickedness. And you want that. You want that better life. You want that John 10:10, but you're stuck. You are anchored to wickedness. That's why I said at the beginning, it's harsh. Some of us, in order to get there, we're going to have to leave some people here. We're going to have to leave them and walk this way and leave them in our dust. Love the 5,000, commissioned the 72, had the 12, mentored the 3, and loved the 1. Who's in your intimate circle? There's a bottom line. In order to continue to grow in your faith journey, to grow up in Jesus and become more and more like Jesus, your closest relationships should be with other committed Christ followers in the church. Now, I want to unpack this statement because on the surface, you're like, I don't know if I agree with this. Your closest, the intimacy, your closest relationships should be with people who are other committed Christ followers. Committed is the word. Because you know, just like I know, there are people who say they're Christians, but they definitely don't live like they're Christians. There are people who say it, but they don't show it. They don't act or behave like it. Committed Christ followers show joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. That's the fruit of the Spirit. That's how you'll know if we're followers of Jesus, by the fruit of the Spirit. Your closest friendships, that intimacy, should be with other Christians, Christ followers in the church. Because you can say you're a Christ follower, but if you don't show you're a Christ follower, then you're not really a Christ follower. And then I say other committed Christians in the church because there's people who would say, I don't even need to go to church to be a Christian. Now listen, on the surface, 100% agree with that. That you don't have to necessarily go to church to follow Christ, to love Christ, and honor Christ. I get the premise of that, but let's drill down for a second. Jesus came to what? Serve, not be served. And so if you're not in a church serving? Are you really modeling what Jesus came to do and be? Jesus came and said, give to Caesar what Caesar's and give to God what God. He is endorsing tithes. He's endorsing offerings. He's endorsing giving. So if you're not in a church and you don't have a home church, where are you serving and where are you giving? You're not following the model that Jesus came and modeled for us. That's why this statement for me, and I really thought about this statement, how do I concise it but say what I need to say? Your closest, that intimacy group, should be with other committed Christ followers in the church. In fact, Tom, who plays bass, Tom Crothers is starting a men's group back up. We had it in the fall. He's going to do it again starting in February. This is it right here. Other committed Christ followers. Intimacy isn't a sexual word. It's a meaningful word. Who are you intimate with in your relationship with Jesus? Your closest friendships should be with committed Christ followers who will pull you towards righteousness and pull you away from wickedness. So I'm going to close with 2 questions. I want you to think about it. Who is in your intimate circle, and should they be? That middle circle, who gets to speak into your life? Who gets to shape you and mold you and train you and correct you and guide you and pull you? Who gets that, and should they be there? And what are they pulling you towards? And then the next question is along the similar line. Do you have any committed Christ followers in that circle? Or are they all people who are far from Jesus and they're bound to this? Oh, but Dan, I'm going to evangelate. Oh, but Dan, that's the only time is Sunday mornings I get to see them and go grab brunch or mimosas and lunch. This is when I get to see them. Then you're bound to this. You might strive for that, but you'll always be pulled back to this. Who gets to speak into your life? Who's in that intimate circle? And should they be? Do you have any committed Christ followers in your intimate circle? Because if you don't, you will never get where you want to go. You won't. And I say this with love because I know it for myself. You don't have enough strength. You don't have enough willpower. You don't have enough determination. You can't get there on your own. Your life is downstream of your community. Who's in your community?